welcome everybody to kind of a special edition of the AmeriCanaries Podcast. This is podcast number 13, right?
Yeah, lucky number for me to be on.
Lucky number 13. And speaking of 13, as you know, the U.S. was founded with 13 original colonies. So our special guest just came up with that. Our special guest today.
There's your improv, Ken.
Yeah. Hey, I can do a lot of stuff. Believe me, is William McKenzie. I'm not even doing with the fake Scottish accent. I could if he wants me to.
You know? I've got a Scottish grandfather, but I'm mostly English and Irish actually. But
gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's William McKenzie from the clan McKenzie, who, if you watched any part of the Watford game, if you saw any of the highlights, like, hey, there's a guy with the USA flag in the crowd, and he's holding it up right now. So William McKenzie is the USA flag guy. So we're going to talk to him, find out the story, and learn a little bit about him. Joining myself is Mark Foster, founder of the AmeriCanaries. And Mark, what is your role for the Canaries Trust now?
We're still not sure. It's really going to be more of an ambassador. I mean, title. I mean, I think role ambassador would fit that title. I mean, they've used co-opted non-voting board member as something as a description, but also ambassador as well. So we're working out what exactly we have to do there to fulfill our role, but very much a go-between for me at least, North American fans and the trust, while also because it's the trust, you get an in with the executive board of the club itself proper through their quarterly meetings.
Right.
So another voice towards the club.
Right. Our guest for the 11th podcast was the chairman of the trust, Robin Sainty, who is, he says, William, when I told him having on, he's a good lad. And I says, do you know him? He says, no, I know him through Twitter. He says, all right, that's a good, good enough endorsement. So we had Robin on, and then after that, I mean, he may have already been thinking about extending the invite to you, Mark, and to why can't I come with the other two guys' names?
Lucas.
I was going to say Lewis. Yeah,
Lucas, the Brazilian Canary.
And then the guy in Italy, Roberto,
and I don't think I can pronounce his last name without looking at it on the spelling. So
hopefully
apologies to him.
We'll get Roberto on the podcast at some point in time, because we already had Lucas, which is kind of neat. And also joining us when he takes off his mute is Jeff Ewick from South Carolina, who is co-founder of AmeriCanaries. And Jeff calls himself one of the sticker guys, sticker guru.
Don't tell his wife.
Yeah.
What's it say here?
Sticker boy, I think.
Yeah, it says sticker boy. Yeah, sticker boy in the envelope. I was going to hold it up to hide his address. And based on Jeff's address, he didn't answer. Do you live off of a golf course, Jeff? Based off of your address.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm looking at your address. Do you live by a golf course?
Yeah.
Jeff's address gives you the impression he lives by a golf course. All right, so we have William on the program, and he has his flag. So the big question that we all want to know is, what's the story about you bringing the flag to the game? And then the big follow-up is, how did the USA chant start? And then we have a little bit of history of where the USA chant originated here in the U.S., if you don't know.
Yeah. So I've been a fan of Josh Sargent actually the whole season. Like, I think although he hasn't been able to score up to the Watford game, I've been impressed with his sort of strength in the air, his commitment and hard work, and the way he sort of progressed the ball through the channels, held it up pretty well. And so I got Watford tickets. I've actually been to all but 3 games this season. So I go to all home and most away.
Impressive.
Yeah, and my ticket got issued row B, and so I thought, oh, I'll be second row, and I thought, oh, how can I use this to my advantage? I might as well try and get a player's shirt. That was what was going through my mind in the first instance. And so I don't know, it just came to me that the USA flag was the flag to bring. There's only one USA player. It was a bit different to say Pookie or Cruel that you mentioned in the pre-lab. And so that's how I originally thought the flag should, why I bought the flag. It turns out that row B isn't the second row. So I was sort of, when I got there, I was like, oh, well, here we are. I brought the flag, and it's not going to get used, but how wrong I was. And he puts in his best performance of the season. He scores 2 goals at our end. And yeah, every goal, it was just coming out and it was just being waved. I've got some great photos at the time. And it's sort of been good. There's lots of people who recorded the match or highlights of the match from the Watford end, would sort of then film the Norwich away end as we were celebrating. And it was nice to sort of see yourself, just the flag comes out, you just sort of see it being sort of wafted about. In terms of so it was a great game to bring it to. And I don't know, you guys will have to inform me, should I bring it to every game or never bring it to a game again? Because is the luck run out or will the luck continue? I don't really know. I'm interested on your thoughts on that.
I think our recommendation is bring it. I'm sure you can fold it up. Bring it. Especially if it's you brought it before, and it's been shown. And then we'll get to the USA chant.
Well, it's one of those things. You're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Bring it again. It's your fault. And if you bring it in the game and he doesn't score, it's your fault.
Bring it. But the idea is, if he gets an assist or does something, good, but not just like, hey, wave the flag. The corollary is the Chicago Cubs, the baseball team. When they win, what they did, this is way before days of the internet and whatever. The team was been around since the early 1900s, and their stadium was built in like 1908. They have a flag. They have a big W flag, what they fly on their scoreboard. So to let them know if the team wins, they then hoist a flag. Well, when I attended the game with my son, when we were out there when the Baltimore Orioles were playing them, so they won one game. It was a split. Everyone has a W flag and they unfurl it. So I would say, if there's 40,000 people in the stands, there had to be like, I don't know, 1% of the people had this flag, and they brought it out and they were showing it. That was a thing to do. So I definitely would bring it.
Bring it again. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's hope this is starts something with him. So in the last 2 matches, he has an assist. Because the own goal went down as assist. Which is kind of interesting, and 2 great goals. And don't know if you know, but Roger Bennett for Men in Blazers. Do you know what that show is?
I don't. I'm afraid.
Okay, so Roger Bennett and Michael Davies, is that his name? The other guy? Okay, they do a show, for the coverage of soccer in the U.S. on NBC Sports called Men in Blazers, and theirs is sort of a comedic look at things, and they have guests in their studio. But Roger also is famous for doing the stories of the newly promoted teams, and he puts that, he's like an hour long, the newly promoted things, and then he'll do an in-depth look at things that are happening. He did a 5-minute video of Josh Sargent's Scorpion goal and your flag, you and the flag.
Oh really? You'll have to link that to me, and I'll have to watch it. Yeah. Okay.
Mark, do you have that?
I can pull it up.
Yeah, Mark, and you can send it to him. Yeah, because you're definitely in it. So it's he also did one. You probably don't then have that. What is it? Was it a Geico ad? The Whoop, there it is. Is that the one with the
I'm not sure what
sprinkles.
I'm not sure which one you're thinking of. There's so many Geico ads.
It's the one where the woman's in the kitchen, and then she's all of a sudden the 2 guys are rapping and talking about the toppings for the ice cream. Have you seen that commercial?
I'm not sure I have.
Okay. It's so he did It's basically the two guys that did the song "Whoop There It Is." Have you heard that song?
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so instead of "Whoop There It Is," it's "Scoop There It Is."
Oh,
okay.
It's,
now you got the punchline. Now I know.
Right, so it's "Scoop There It Is." He did a 5-minute video looking into what's happening in that particular commercial. But he's like, okay, this is what happened, and I forgot. So it's really interesting. So we'll send the video. So you're, definitely in that, and any highlights, there's lots of highlights.
And so there was at the time, and then like after the game when he was sort of addressing the crowd, that was when I was on TV, and suddenly my phone just started blowing up.
Mm-hmm.
School uni friends were like, "Will, you're on TV. Loads of photos, videos, etc." And then some photographers got some photos. I don't know if you saw on the club's Instagram account, there was a photo of me sort of waving it, which was great memories though. Great memories that I'll sort of last forever, I think.
It's great. Yeah, I was on the Premier League fan zone twice this past week, which is kind of interesting. And Wednesday, by the way, I finally recorded last night, Mark. We got a call out, it's like, oh, Ken's from the AmeriCanaries Podcast. I'm like, yes. So they talk, says, hey, we're interviewing, you saw the guy off the USA flag. We're interviewing this Saturday for the podcast. So basically it's a plug for you and a plug for the podcast. So bringing the flag was interesting because of course you got to use it twice, and then at the end, I mean, it's what a game. I know everyone talks about the scorpion kick, and it was a fantastic piece of improvisation, a great bit of skill. I actually prefer the second goal. Actually, I don't know, there's just something about it that sort of makes me believe that he can, like, obviously a scorpion kick you do once or twice in your career maybe as a striker, but a good headed goal right into the corner with pace, beat the defender, made a late run into the box. You can imagine him doing that again this season, and that's what I found sort of most pleasing, that it was actually a sort of a proper striker's goal, if that makes sense, rather than just sort of a one time out of 100 it'll go in the top corner, and the other time it skins off his back heel and goes out or goes way over, or do you know what I mean? Whereas those sort of a good headed goal, I think, is more replicable. The term proper striker's goal has been used multiple times. When it was broadcast in the US, the two guys that were doing the game, they both said that other people have, the people in the studio. So a proper striker's goal, right? They said, hey, the second one is really what you want out of a proper striker. The first one's a bit of magic, but the second one is like, oh wow, look at that. That's what we've been waiting for, somebody to do that. So you're not alone in believing that was the goal that really showed that, hey, he has the skill, the want, and the ability,
for sure.
Put that in. Yeah. But then he got to do the baby cradle too, which is kind of
they in the UK broadcast they made a big deal out of that, and they were sort of giving him a bit of banter about not doing it for the first goal and what would the wife think, sort of thing. So it was good that he got a chance to do that in the same game.
I did find that interesting because they were, people, I've seen a couple of mentions on Twitter that he hadn't done the salute. And, so he did the salute the first time, then he got a bit of stick for not doing the baby thing. And he's like, oh, well, I guess I better score again so I can do that.
Yeah.
Right. I think the first goal was like, oh, wow. Okay. He also had to wait because they weren't, they had to wait like a couple seconds or so.
For the VAR.
Right. Everyone was like, was that in?
I didn't think it was in from my angle. I had it looked, I guess it was sort of very split second, but and then I thought it would have been ruled out by VAR. So we had a lot of luck that game, and lots of different ways.
And then who was it? Mike Dean, looks at his watch, I go, yeah, it's a goal. And then he starts celebrating, like, oh, VAR check. Oh no, come on. So you had all that. So I think that tamped down on a bit of the celebration for that fantastic goal versus the second one. There wasn't a question, even though they did a VAR check on that one.
No, it was very nearly offside. I don't know whether you saw that it was millimeters. Like
the extended highlights that the club posted had that. I was like, oh no, come on. It's just like, yeah. So 2 fantastic goals, almost both ruled out by VAR. So the USA chant. So I want to. So do you know where that originated?
I think when he signed, they did like a post or something, USA, 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 and lots of like his unveiling photos had like the US flag in the background.
Right.
I think his first game for us was the Bournemouth Cup game, and I remember singing USA at that because he scored twice in that game as well, I think, and got an assist, I think. So
Okay.
I think that's where it originated. I think lots of the chants from players that come very organically, I think, or sort of are a small selection of fans that then shout it loud enough that people remember it and join in. So I can't pinpoint the exact location, but it was pretty early on. It wasn't sort of the last couple of weeks,
Okay.
or whatever. It's been all season.
Right. What I was sort of what I was sort of getting at is the real origin of why people do USA. All three of us are old enough to. I think Jeff is old enough. Yeah, you were born before 1980, correct, Jeff? Yeah. Okay. So in the 1980 Winter Olympics, okay, it's from the Miracle on Ice, the USA hockey team. You've heard about the Miracle on Ice, where they beat Russia. So in 1980, U.S. and the people in the U.S. weren't feeling too great about themselves at the time. The hostages were still being held in Iran and a variety of other things. So I would say USA pride was kind of low at that time. And then the hockey team goes on this fantastic run. And the USA chant, I don't know if it started at the game against Russia or if it started before, but it came from that. And then it just came a thing of, wow, this is great. The fans are chanting USA. Wow, we really need this. This is phenomenal. Beating, the incredibly strong, unbeatable, Russian team. So then anytime after that it's used, it's always, goes back to a source of, USA pride. And the fact that we were hearing this, in an away stadium. I was like, whoa, what's with the USA chants? This is just, incredible.
By people overwhelmingly not American.
Yeah. For
not
people
just
who
an
are
away stadium.
Right. If people who are not American doing the USA chant and what it means for us here. So that's where we're curious if the people really knew, like, that's the origin of it, and that's why it became, so popular. I know when like the international matches and stuff like that, sometimes USA is used kind of almost derisively, sort of like, a little bit of overt pride, but it's
cynically.
Yes, cynically, cynically or something. So I don't know. It might even be, let's say, in college basketball, let's say maybe a guy who's clobbering your team did not come from the USA. And then you'll start doing the USA chant basically to be mean to that guy or something like that, which is, but generally it's a source of pride in some way, shape, or form. So,
and it's an easy chant.
Yeah.
It's not a long song. Us Americans, we can remember it pretty simply.
Right, it's an easy chant because I saw it when they did. They showed the city view of the Everton match, and the players were coming out, beforehand, and they're walking, and all of a sudden, I said, "There's a bunch of kids yelling at all the players coming out." I says, "Where are they?" So when Pookie comes out, they're going, "Timo Pookie, baby, Timo Pookie." So whatever is they're chanting. Josh Sargent comes out, and it's like USA, USA, and then he's like, "Oh, hi," he waves. He's like surprised to hear it. So these are, I was told, who was it? Connor Southwell, who we had in our last podcast. We asked him about this. That's like the club suite area where the kids are having a birthday party. beforehand.
Oh,
So
yes,
so they were doing it. So the kids up there were doing a
Mm.
USA chant when Josh came out, and they were calling out, all the different players, whoever it was. But that was the only one where it was a USA chant. They didn't go, "Hey, Netherlands," or or whatever. It was just kind of interesting.
Yeah, no,
So
I think the support. I think there's been like a willingness for him to do well. Like he's a very likable guy. Like he works hard for the team.
Mhm.
But yeah, obviously, when you're brought in as a striker for big money, even if you're young, even if you've been in a poor Bremen team, even if you've not, had that many opportunities to score, you are expected to score. And I think that's where some of the sort of discontent, disappointment has been. It may not have been sort of Josh Sargent himself, but more that Josh Sargent, before he'd scored or before he delivered these good performances, was like indicative of like a poor summer of recruitment. But I think there's always been like that willingness for him to do well. I'm really pleased. Hopefully he'll be able to sort of kick on from this. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it went from, God, such a waste of money. We spent how much on him? And look, other clubs had spent a small amount of money and have gotten goals. Like, wow, this is what we're getting for our money. Jeez, Stuart Weber, he really did a very poor job of recruitment. Yeah, I mean, they've been slated for the recruitment. So it went from a couple matches ago to, what a gigantic waste of money. Like, wow, we love him. So it's just really interesting how the tide has turned of the fans in the favor. They're, like him and support him. We hope that continues, because you hate for players to be, pointed out for being made fun of, being scapegoats and whatever. You really hate for fans to just constantly get on somebody, and it's certainly a lot better if they're being supported instead of a guy comes off for a warm-up, "Hey, Sargent, you suck." You rather go, "Hey, USA." It's a lot better.
There's been a huge transformation between like the Palace game, which I was at, and then the Watford game. Like the Palace game was the worst in terms of like how hostile it was, the worst away end I've ever been in.
The gallows humor and everything.
Gallows humor. I mean, Sargent got sarcastic chants. Gilmore got, I'm sure sort of told to go back to Chelsea. Loads of other sort of nasty chants, but it just shows what a couple of goals, couple of wins does for the belief, for the hope, for like the sort of projection of we can actually stay up this season. I mean, it'll still be hard, but like the hope is there, and something.
17th cures a lot of ills.
Well, it does. Despite all the Burnley having 20 million games in hand and
Newcastle
having an unlimited bank.
I mean,
we want the points.
As Mark said, you'd rather have the points in hand, and then the goals. That's sort of like what in golf. You're in the clubhouse at -7, and then two other guys are at -4 with 5 holes left to play or something. You'd rather be have that score posted up there. And but that also means at some point Burnley's going to have to play like 4 matches in 11 days.
Well, that's what I think. And like they've got a couple of good players, but they were trying to sign this like Croatian winger who's just rejected them like this morning. So I don't think they're finding it that easy to bring players in to replace Chris Wood. So I fear for Burnley, not in a sad sense because I'd like them to go down, but
have you been to Burnley? Because Robin Sainty had some kind of funny comments about Burnley when he was on.
Well, I've just heard it's just not it's a really low quality stadium, and
I believe the comment was that that it's twinned with Mordor.
Fair.
And the other one was that it was stuck in the 1950s. So
I mean, I've been to grounds like that, but that was like bottom end of the championship, sort of like Burton Albion or whatever. But not a Premier League club. But,
I think he also was talking about the city in general, because I know there's certain away games that people want to go to because they like visiting the area.
Yeah, but Burnley, I don't think it's one of those. Yeah.
Right, because we're all excited. We're going to the Manchester. Like, you're all excited to go to Manchester and possibly see the club get demolished, because apparently Manchester is a very nice place to visit for several days. So the away fans look forward to going to the city itself. Same thing here. If you're following your team and it's like, hey, let's go see them play in this stadium or against this team. Certain places are more desirable to go visit than others. And you'll make a whole weekend. Like, well, so I mentioned the Cubs when my son and I went to Chicago. Hey, I've been to Chicago numerous times. I know he had never been, so I know that'd be a great place for him to go because they had never played. Versus some other places, it's just there's less desirable. So apparently, Burnley is not a very favorite destination for away trips.
It's just as well that it's like past Manchester. It's like past Manchester, more north. So from Norwich, it's like an absolute trek to get. I mean, not everywhere from Norwich is a trek to get to, but
right.
Yeah, but Burnley especially, it's like Newcastle.
Yeah, I think it's like the second furthest, like Newcastle, and and Sunderland, who are where are they, in League One now?
Yeah,
I think they're in League One. Yeah, that I always understood that was a trek to get there.
So that's a pretty good segue. Let's talk a little bit about Will. How many of the away matches have you been to, and how many stadiums have you been to? I don't know if you keep track. Well, I mean, I'm just interested in how jealous we can possibly be about going to all these away matches.
Yeah, it's this season has been the busiest season for me in terms of attending games. I'm now living in London, so I've been able to sort of more easily go to the London games, so Chelsea, Arsenal, Spurs, Brentford. But I've sort of have got this statistic. I've only missed 3 games this season, which I think it's definitely a record for me. I've been a home season ticket holder for about 12 years now, with my dad. But then I go to away games with mates from school or from university. So we managed to get tickets. I use my friend's account sometimes because they are in a higher priority group or whatever. That's a good way of securing tickets.
Right. There you go.
More consistently. So yeah,
work system.
I own a beer, but no, it's been good. I mean, I've had lots of good experiences away from home. Not seen us win that much across my entire life, but some great away days. But it's been really good to follow the team, especially after COVID, where I didn't get to see them in person, and then when I was at university, I didn't see the first championship winning season pretty much. So it's been good to see quite a lot of games this season.
What about some of the oldest grounds in England? Like, you're talking about Goodison Park, Villa Park, and places like, like the old original, they call the old original stadiums.
Yeah.
The original.
I mean, I've been to Anfield. I was there for the 4-1 loss on the opening night. In terms of really old stadiums, I guess, I went to the old Brentford Stadium, but that was back 15 years ago. Then Burton and Wigan probably are the older stadiums, but quite a few now have been regenerated. Spurs, Arsenal, Newcastle. I mean, it's a classic stadium, but it still doesn't have that sort of innate, intimate sort of nature. It's sort of very vast, and you're up in the gods, and you can see the whole of Newcastle, but you can't see the pitch. So
isn't that the worst away seating position for Norwich fans?
It's like 3 tiers up or something, but like big tiers behind the goal, and it's about, I don't know how many flights of stairs it is, but everyone is out of breath at the top. And then if you've lost, then it's a long trudge down again. So but no, it's a good ground there. It's a lovely city. I was at uni in Durham, which is only 10-15 minutes away, so I got to know Newcastle pretty well during the 3 years I was there. So it's a lovely city.
So that's where you went to university?
Yes. So
what's the name of the school?
Pardon? Sorry.
What's the name of the school again?
Durham University.
Durham. Durham.
Yes. So I think there's Durham, North Carolina, I think.
Yeah, it's pronounced slightly differently. Yeah.
Oh, is it? How's it pronounced?
Durham.
Interesting.
Durham.
Yeah.
So if you saw, what's the Kevin Costner movie?
Bull Durham.
Bull Durham. Yeah, the Kevin Costner movie about minor league baseball. Bull Durham is based there.
Interesting. Yeah. So yeah, that's only 10 minutes from Newcastle. So yeah, good club. But yeah, hope they aren't as successful as I think they will be. But
this one, what did you major in?
I did history. So the UK education system, I think, is slightly different because you don't do sort of majors and minors. You just do you do one subject. So you sort of specialize in 3 or 4 at A level, which is 16 to 18 years old. I don't know what equivalent level that is for in the US. Is it high school?
Last year is a high school. Yeah, last year is a high school. Yeah.
And then you normally just do 1 or 2 subjects at university for 3 years. So I just did history, which was really interesting. I didn't do that much US history actually. I slightly regret that, but you do sort of various modules: medieval, early modern, late modern, sort of approaching it from different angles. But it was really interesting and intellectually stimulating.
Yeah, my son, who has a journalism degree, is a history minor, so he sort of was like, I've been nice history classes. Can I get a minor in this? Oh yeah, you just need to take 1 additional class. So they said, oh, what's the additional class you need to take? You need to take a class dealing with world history before it's 1650 or something, like whatever it was. You need to take 1 class. So he took a winter mini-master, which is 3 weeks long, which was looking into how Game of Thrones represents the medieval time. So if you ignore dragons and some of the other stuff that goes on there, it's a kind of a decent look at what they think of would be like. And then he watched then he said, well, this is interesting. If they're, hope I'm not spoiling this for anybody, but if they're going to kill off the main protagonist at the end of season 1, I'm going to watch the rest of this series.
Yeah.
So he, an interesting history minor. Here in the U.S., you major, you take most of the classes in your major, but you have to be a rounded student. So you have to take all the rest of these, whether it's general education, university requirements. You then have to take probably 2 classes in each of 8 areas. Each school is different. So if you're a history major, you just can't take, every semester 5 classes of history. You'll have to take math. You'll have to take science. You'll have to take art. Every once in a while to fulfill all these requirements, because you have to be like a rounded.
It's interesting. They do have that in the UK at high school level. It's called the IB, the International Baccalaureate, where you do like 8 subjects, but most UK schools do A levels, which is literally just 3 or 4 subjects, and then you specialize again. So I mean, most history students joke that they do history because they can't work with numbers. So I'm not sure having to do a math module would be very beneficial.
Gotcha. So I think you covered. So you root for Norwich because your dad is.
Yeah. So my dad grew up in Norwich and was supporting since, I don't know, his early childhood, let's say, and he's sort of then imparted that onto me. So it's just a family connection, really. I mean, most people in the UK do support their parents' team. It's just how it normally works out. I mean, some people choose glory instead of loyalty and just support some random successful team. So a lot of people of my generation support Arsenal because they were successful when my age started getting into football about 2004. So there are so many Arsenal fans everywhere, purely based on their desire for success. But,
You'll get a lot of that here. There's some people that are very big fans of their local team, and like I have Baltimore Orioles stuff. I have University of Maryland. I have lots of stuff in my office. You're only seeing a little bit, but there's plenty of people who follow, the teams that are bigger nationally, just because they're successful. Where Mark is from, Mark is near the Dallas area. There's lots of Cowboy fans, no matter where you are. In baseball, you're going to find Yankee fans, Red Sox fans, Cardinal fans, Dodger fans, because those are more like teams with national perspectives and national fan base based on how good they've been. In the NFL, same sort of a thing.
The Patriots, isn't it? If you want to get into NFL, but you don't have a team, you just support the the Chiefs. Yeah,
right. It's Mark's actually from Kansas City, so it's a lot of it is, well, I don't really have a team per se, or I don't like my team. Let's support a team that is doing well at the time. Robin Sainty is a San Francisco 49ers fan, because in the 80s, that's when they were doing really well with Joe Montana and Jerry Rice. So it's same sort of thing. It's like, I can understand if you're not familiar with your local team, you'll pick, this team's doing really good, let's follow them. I like how they play.
I think in Robin's defense, he'd been over to San Francisco several times as well in that period. So there's more than just bandwagoning there for him.
Right. That's the classic term, yeah.
Yeah, bandwagoning. But I do notice that I see pictures all the times of, hey, I'm taking my child to their first Norwich game, and them getting Norwich attire for Christmas, and gigantic beaming, smiles on their face. So it seems, here there's a lot of it built in, be the fan of your father's team. It seems a little bit more in England that is ingrained in how you become a fan. Do you agree with that?
I would say so. I mean, obviously, the people I know, most people did support. I mean, Norwich is slightly different because it's a one club county, so there is more sort of people from just Norfolk generally do just support Norwich. Whereas I can see why, if you were, say, lived in London, why you might not support your father's team if you were just sort of around friends that, say, supported a different team. But I think on the whole, I'd say it's based. Most people go to their first football game with their parents, or sort of other sports, rugby, cricket, this sort of thing. So I'd say, yeah, definitely. It's interesting because you sort of say that you've got loads of stuff from your states, like in your room, like from Maryland or Baltimore, like
right.
Whereas I'd say there's less of a culture of that in the UK. Like, I don't have other sort of Norwich or Norfolk based memorabilia, or I don't know anyone that does. I think that's a sort of interesting comparison, that sort of, whilst people might support the same team as their parents, they might not be sort of connected as much to the wider area in terms of other sports or activities. I don't know. It's an interesting question, but
interesting. We also have more sports here.
Yeah, I think there is. Yeah, there's more sort of sport that's like major, like sort of you've got NFL, you've got baseball, you've got ice hockey to a certain extent. Like, whereas in the UK, it's sort of there are football cities, and then there are other cities like Warrington, which are very big for rugby and things like that. So there are less major sports, I guess, in the UK.
Right. We also have the entire college sports complex,
which is huge, isn't it? Yeah.
You really don't have, other than I know rowing is big, but I don't know, is there like basketball? Do the colleges play basketball against each other, or?
No, not really. Basketball's quite a minor sport, and it's sort of more that you would join a basketball club if you were really passionate about basketball, instead of it's sort of you just play it as a child. You'd have to sort of want to play it, I think. So
gotcha.
I think it's mostly rugby and cricket are the other two sports, I'd say, in the UK that are the main ones.
Right, and then there's rugby fans here, cricket fans. It's got to be a very small minority of the people that actually
tend to be from India or Pakistan, frankly. I mean, because you do see, in some parks around here, at least, you'll occasionally see some guys out, with the wickets and the bat and doing their thing, and they tend to be from India, at least for me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the main cricket countries are India, Pakistan, South Africa, Australia, and the UK, and England. So,
Gee, what do they have in common? Anybody know? Well, let's ask the history major. What do they have
Well,
in common?
how long have you got? Yeah, no, no, definitely.
You can just say
that might
one.
have something to do with it. I wouldn't want to make a firm conclusion either way. But
You can have one word that starts with I and ends with ism.
yeah, just filling in the dots.
Yeah. Canada said, "Nah, let's put a funny end on our bat and slap it around on the ice." So.
And Canada also has lacrosse, which I don't even know. That's
a bit like rowing. It's sort of rowing and lacrosse are more sort of, there's like a public school system in the UK where so it's like elite boarding, privately sort of funded schools, and they tend to play lacrosse and do rowing more than the sort of
so lacrosse. That's interesting.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah, lacrosse is interesting. Well, let's segue a little bit. So, living where I do, and probably goes down to where Jeff is also. The East Coast of the USA is your prime lacrosse area, basically from like North Carolina up to Massachusetts. That's sort of like your prime lacrosse area. Even we'll go from, let's say, I-95 major east, north-south road, on the east of the U.S. That whole corridor is very big with lacrosse, especially men's lacrosse. There's a couple teams west that, like Notre Dame, which is in Indiana. They're strong in lots of sports, and I think University of Denver or something like that. They basically hired a coach from the East Coast and said, "Hey, come build the program." So it's very, very strong on the East Coast. Women's lacrosse, which is interesting because there's an aspect of USA law called Title IX, which requires colleges to have equivalent athletic programs for men and women. Women's lacrosse has expanded vastly. It's less an East Coast sport, more of a national sport, and you have opportunities. A friend of mine, his daughter got a partial scholarship to San Diego, one of the San Diego schools, to play lacrosse. That's not a lacrosse hotbed. So it's played here a lot. People follow it a lot. There's championships, and you'll see when I grew up, I would see kids walking to school with their lacrosse stick. That was like part of them and practicing, all the time. So the lacrosse players, at least in high school, it seemed like they played soccer in the fall, or football, those who weren't playing American football, and then they played lacrosse in the spring. It's a very similar skill set, but it's very different. And the men's game is much more violent than the women's game. The men have to wear so much more protection than the women do. The women, their protection are goggles, but not even full face shield. They wear goggles, then I'm sure they have like shin pads or something. They can't hit each other. They can't check each other. They can't smack each other's stick. They get penalties for it. And so the women's cross game is more of a skill and speed game. The men's lacrosse is brute force skill and speed. So a lot of the, because they were in the full pads, a lot of it is like, I'm going to smack the heck out of you to try to get the ball out and hitting. And then they got the full face masks on, and other stuff, and lots of padding, because guys with the sticks are just trying to whack the heck out of them. In women's, you do that, you're got a penalty and you're off the field for a little bit. So it's the same sport, but played very, very differently. But but I'm interested.
It's interesting because like the highlights I've seen of ice hockey, they just sort of are fights just in the middle of the game, like in the highlights I've seen. And it's interesting that it is more sort of like a cultural part of some US sports, which
well, it's funny. It's funny though too. You talk about ice hockey. We also have indoor lacrosse or box lacrosse, so they call it up in Canada, and that's one area where it's actually expanded across the West a little more. I mean, we even have a team here in Fort Worth that I haven't been to a game to yet. It's their first season, but indoor lacrosse has kind of become a thing because now you've compressed. You don't have 11 guys out there, however many are on a normal
I think it's
outdoor.
5.
Well, no. It's 5 for indoor.
I think it's
but I'm
5
saying
on 5,
you don't take that whole outdoor and squeeze it in. It's a 5-on-5 plus the goalie, and you're playing it essentially on the same size surface with the boards that you see
ice hockey.
Ice hockey. It's it's 85 by 200, and with the goals outward, just I think a little bit further than you see in ice hockey. But it's very, very much that same physical game as ice hockey. Being something of a hockey guy, you're gonna see the fights. I mean, because that's what makes the highlight reels. I mean, you get the wild, incredible goals, but for some reason, everybody likes to rubberneck a car accident, and with fighting, you get those knockdown, drag out line brawls, and everybody dropping the gloves and everything. That's what you're typically going to see if you're not, in a hockey area. It's like, oh yeah, I know the fights, so there's more to the game than that. I'm trying to defend the game a little bit.
Yeah, hockey, some of the violent checks and things are designed to give yourself an advantage and try to knock out the best player on the other team. You give yourself an advantage.
You're trying to remove them from the puck.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So you'll see it. I mean, there's some ridiculous skill level involved. Like,
it's slightly more legal than going in 2-footed.
Yeah.
Basically.
I can't skate. I don't know how they do it, but I always get on ice hockey fans' cases when they say, wow, look at these guys. Look at the skill level. Look how physical they are. These guys are great athletes. And it's like, you know what they do in soccer? They run around for 90 minutes plus, and they never come out. And they keep doing it. That's pretty impressive that they're able to run around.
You're winding me up,
minutes.
Ken.
What?
You're winding me up. just because a shift is only 35, 40 seconds, they're sprinting the whole time. They're not.
I know.
But I said,
jog, run.
Definitely.
As I said,
anyway.
I'll get in their case. Yeah, I mean, I can't skate. I can't skate, but I'm just like, if it's so tough, why can't you last more than 45 seconds?
Some of us have played. We know the difference.
I have played, and there is a major difference. Yeah.
Right. I know.
But let's steer back onto the road here a second, and we'll talk about where do you now at Carrow Road? Where do you sit? And talk about some of your most memorable goals, favorite players, goals at home, goals away, and some of your favorite players.
So I and my dad sit in it's now called the Regency Security Centre, like what I would say the river end. So the opposite the Barclay, so behind just to the right of the goal, quite low down. And I've seen some great games at Carrow Road. I mean, the ones that stand out to me, definitely the playoffs against Ipswich for sure. I think just there was so much riding on it. It wasn't just a potential chance to go up. It was, bragging rights for East Anglia and things like that. It was Ipswich's best ever season, I think, or at least for a good.
William, I'm pointing. That is a poster of the Norwich players that have scored goals over the last 10 years against Ipswich.
Oh, really? It's probably quite a big poster then, isn't it? But,
yeah, it's. I forgot. Like, I think Talk Norwich City had something to do with it. So that's like the only Norwich thing you'll see in the view. Is that I got that done. It was a free. The poster was cheap. The getting it framed was expensive, but it's really nice.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Okay, so seeing the Ipswich playoff.
Yeah, the Derby 3-2. That was a few years ago. Simeon Jackson in like the final dying seconds. It was the other end, but I just remember hugging anyone that would sort of hug back, and just like a massive brawl of everyone.
Mark's got props.
Yeah. Oh,
that's the program from the playoff game.
Oh, is it? Yeah. No, I'll have that somewhere at home. But
nice. Is that Halson?
Who is?
I think it is. Yeah.
Looks like Halson.
Yeah, I think it is. I think you're right. Yeah, it's Johnny.
Yeah.
That's nice looking.
Yeah, it's great. That one. They always have good designs, the programs. So they always seem to do a good.
Yeah, they've won awards for their designs. Okay.
Yeah.
So
And then thinking more modern, gosh, I mean the Man City game with most of the goals were at our end. I just remember sort of being in shock more, just in terms of, is this actually happening? Especially when Cantwell put the second one in and sort of ran across just in front of us. So I was sort of delirium. So that was a fantastic.
Okay, so if it's at your end, so where you sit when we see the matches on TV, that's the left side of the screen.
Yeah, bottom
Right.
left-hand corner.
Left
So
side. Okay, right.
when they
For
sort of-
people who are, because I don't have a good feel. Like we asked Robin, says, where do the stands? What does that
Yeah.
mean? You say this end or that end. I don't know what that means. So on TV, it's the left side.
Yeah, so
It's the
bottom
left-handed
left-hand
goal.
corner. When they take corners in that end, you can sometimes see me and my dad like in the background. So sort of quite sort of low down and yeah, just to the right, in level with the edge of the penalty box. In terms of away goals, I mean, I've been actually quite lucky, although there's been some terrible away performances. I remember on Boxing Day travelling to Burton for a 0-0 where we didn't have a shot on target, I don't think. It's not a great use of my Boxing Day. But there have been some...
Didn't I see a stat which shocked me that Norwich has never won a Premier League match on Boxing Day?
It wouldn't surprise me.
I saw something. I was like, really?
Yeah.
I
Especially
seem-
over... Yeah, you go, Mark.
No, I was going to say, I seem to recall that as I was sitting in a library parking lot in northern Michigan, sponging their Wi-Fi, watching us lose to Tottenham a few years ago. Yeah, I think that's still the case. I mean,
Yeah, that's just...
I think I remember hearing that.
Oh, was that the 3-0 one? Was that 3-0?
I believe so.
Yeah, I was at that one, yeah, as well, which was
So
about 6 years ago.
So you sit relatively low. Do you prefer to sit relatively low, or would you rather sit a little higher to get a better view of the
It's
action?
interesting. I do really like our seats. You do feel very connected, and you can sort of, when you shout encouragement at the players, they can hear you probably. But then at away games, I do quite like sometimes being a few rows up, just to sort of have a better, I guess, tactical knowledge of how the game is progressing, what the sort of passing is like. Whereas you're quite flat. When a player is running towards goal, you don't know whether they've just passed the halfway line, whether they're about to be in the penalty box. So it's quite hard in terms of,
Right.
there'll be goals where they're running and you're like, oh, well, they're just over the halfway line, and then they shoot and they're actually just outside the penalty box and score or whatever. So you don't get that aspect of the game that you say get on TV or being high up. But I do quite like the sort of, especially as the fans are very close to the pitch, being close to the pitch. I think you feel sort of very connected to the game. So I do like that.
So the away, other than Newcastle, are all of them basically pitch side, basically like in the corners? Is that where the away fans?
Yeah, they normally put the away fans as in the sort of dodgy seats.
Dodgy seats.
Yeah. Well, I suppose. Yeah. I mean, at Tottenham, although it's a brilliant ground, the way that they've sort of leveled it, the view lines when you're all standing up are just terrible. You can't see like one corner of the pitch. The 2 times I've been there, you're sort of craning your neck trying to get a view. But
Really?
yeah, it's very interesting. I guess they sort of design it for people sitting down, but away fans. So,
yeah, because I know that field is basically there's like a slope as soon as you get off, for drainage or whatever, which is that's interesting. I've seen some of the newer stadiums have that where there's not a whole lot of room and it slopes down. It almost seems like it shouldn't slope and that quick. It should be flat for a little bit because you see players with a little nudge go flying and smash into the advertising board. I'm always concerned that they've seriously injured themselves, when the player, not necessarily fouled them, but, ran into them and knocked them. One happened kind of recently where someone went and clattering. I don't know which one it was. So I just found it interesting. So Tottenham's not.
I think it's Tottenham because they've got the NFL pitch underneath. So I think that's how they got around the sort of, because they've got
I think
NFL.
Tottenham they can rotate, they can move them in and out. Yeah, they have this weird, interesting thing with with NFL where they can, push a button and then it moves in and out. Some NFL stadiums have that.
Glendale.
Glendale in Arizona. Actually, because it's an indoor stadium, the grass is outside, and then they bring it in. So it's outside, for, whatever, Monday through Friday, then Saturday they bring it in for a Sunday game or something like that. So they grow it.
It's so cold, because I know like Green Bay Packers, I watched the highlights of their playoff game and it was just a white pitch, like it's The
term for the Packers stadium is the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field.
Is it?
Yeah, but that's the term because it's so cold.
You need to pronounce that. Say that like it's from the voice of God.
Like
John Facenda,
John or Chris Berman, the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field.
Yeah, but they have heating. They have heating elements underneath the stadium. Now they don't always work. That was Lombardi's pride and joy, and then we got the Ice Bowl with the Cowboys in '66 or whatever that
66,
was.
67. Yeah. There was the recent playoff game. They were saying how cold it was, and then the Ice Bowl was like -20.
Oh, it was obscenely cold.
It was ridiculous. So in Celsius, I don't know, -10. I don't. It was just ridiculous. That was in 1967, before anything really modern as far as keeping you warm on the sidelines, any sort of modern technology for clothing and anything underneath the grass to try and heat it, or it's just rock hard ice and something like that. So it's got to be brutal out there. I mean, it's a tough game as it is, then get hit and land on basically cold concrete surface. That's not a whole lot of fun. So you like the sit further up when you're it away, so you prefer.
Well, I guess because I go to all the home games, so it's nice to have something different. I guess it would be the
when you go to an away, do you get to pick your seat location? Is it one of those, or
no? You get allocated it, so it's very much like a draw where you get allocated. Yeah,
and that goes through the club.
You Norwich. Buy tickets, and they just allocate them row by row, print them out, and send them off. So it really is, when you book it determines the seat you're in. So
okay. So do you always buy through Norwich, or can you buy from the host club?
No, it's always through the away club you buy it through. Just that's the sort of mechanism that's adopted so they have a fixed number of tickets, and that's how many they sell, and it's sort of
So you sit with the away fans, but let's say, oh man, the allocation for Norwich is there, and boy, I really wanted them to see them play this cup match against Millwall, because you said you're in London. Then would you like, okay, I'm willing to sit with the home fans, whatever's available.
I've done it. I did it for Newcastle this season because they sold out. So basically, I went with some uni friends, and I basically sat us like underneath the Norwich fans, so I could still hear the chants very clearly. So I could still sort of pretend I was in the away end. And West Ham as well, which is one that sells out pretty quickly.
How friendly or unfriendly are those occasions if you're not sitting with Norwich, if you're in the midst of the other fans, like how
hostile?
How hostile? Does it depend on where you are, what team it is, and sort of
how much color you're showing?
Well, I think I think you have to be careful. I'm very sort of conscious not to show any partisan support for Norwich or anything. So I do try and wear like a yellow shirt like I am today, or like a green jumper or something, just to get a bit of colour. But I think, West Ham and Newcastle are two grounds that I've been to. They have very passionate, very engaged, let's say, fans who I don't think you'd want to get in an argument with. So I think staying neutral is probably the best course of action in that respect.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just curious because it in the U.S. it really really depends on the sport, the stadium, and then sort of the mindset of the fans. So the more violent the sport, I think the more likely you're going to have belligerent fans being unhappy with you being there. Mark's chuckling.
That's the case.
I've been to a few Red Wings games down here in Dallas, and we outnumber the Stars fans a lot of the time, and they just, they're just like, okay, nice to have you here. And Cowboys, with Jerry, so many Cowboys fans sell their seats in the secondary market that it's not hard to get a very sizable visiting team contingent, even potentially outnumbering the Cowboys, because going to the game at Jerry World is such a thing. If you've never been there, if you're an away fan, unless for a Cowboys game, unless you're Eagles or arguably Washington, you're treated fairly well. I mean, I've been as a Chiefs fan, wearing my jersey and everything, and you're treated pretty well. But you also have numbers typically.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with how drunk.
Oh, really? You wear your own.
Yeah. You do.
So you'd wear your shirt in the other end, Mark.
Well, there's not really ends. The only time we really have ends, we have ends over here with high school.
And college.
High school American football, and in college. And the allocation in college is very much like what you have over there in England for the soccer. But otherwise, there's not ends. You get a ticket wherever you can. I've gone to TCU games when OU has played or other teams have played. And, I've sat with TCU people and found out later, the OU allocation's on the other side. Well, okay, no big deal. And it's not a problem typically.
Yeah, for college sports, especially college football, the away fans are generally sitting near the end zone in the corner of the stadium, near the end zone. So if you're in a corner of the stadium, just imagine, a corner of the stadium. So they're basically putting them in the corner. And I don't know if it holds for all college stadiums, but I tend to think that there's always a home side, for the home team and the away team. I think the away fans are always on the side with where the away team is, but in the end zone. I attended one game that Maryland played University of North Carolina, and that's where we were sitting. So that's generally what they do. And then depending on who's playing who, then the teams will start, interspersing. So if it's, fans from a team a college that really isn't that close or isn't that big, they're sort of in that area. If it's, let's say, a team that's a college that's closer, it expands, and those fans are all over the place, because quite often fans from that other school may live in that area where the home team is. So it's just kind of interesting. One question with home and away: food. What is the big difference? There's got to be a gigantic difference between the food and beverage offerings, versus Norwich and other stadiums. Who's got some really interesting options? Who has some bad options? I know here, when you go to different stadiums, sometimes the food choices are vastly different depending on where you are in the country and what food is, popular in that area. I think you froze for a second.
Yeah, he's froze. I think we lost you there, William.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I never trust football ground food, to be honest. I never. It's not very high. Oh, am I back?
I think we can hear you.
Yeah.
My back now,
It did seem like
now?
your audio was leading your video a little bit for a while there.
I really
There you go.
ground food. I'm not sure if it's particularly high quality. As always, you can find a pint everywhere, I think. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think you heard about football ground food and my lack of trust for it. Spurs have this thing where pints get filled up on the bottom, where there's like a little sort of almost like a circular disc. Oh, apologies. I mean, I can hear you.
Yeah, we got you. Okay, you're saying so the beer that's a new, so I've seen that where you put the you put the glass on and it's filled up from the bottom. Do a lot of football clubs have that?
The bottom filling.
Yeah. Is that a common thing in most of the stadiums in England?
I mean, what I gathered, that's what he was talking about with Tottenham. This is what they're doing there now. And
yeah. No, it's only Spurs that I've seen that.
Well, that makes it much quicker.
It's a faster fill. It's a much faster fill because you don't have the foam.
It's a faster fill.
Oh, it's a much faster fill.
Do you want me to leave and rejoin?
No, you're fine. You're fine. If you have the problem, just leave and rejoin. I'll let you back in if it continues. Because we're heading towards the end of this. Anyway,
we're an hour in, so.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. Okay.
Is that your chair, Mark?
Oh, sorry, I'm cranky.
Okay.
Those are my bones.
All right. Well, William left. He's going to come back in. I'll let him back in. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting because I was always interested when people eat because, as you know, we have various different options that we have in the U.S. in different places where you're going to go. You know, your standard foods are boring, but if you're going to a totally different ballpark, you're going to have something new that's unique to that ballpark, that you're going to try. Here we go.
Yeah. Gates Barbecue in KC and things like that.
There you go.
I don't know what happened. I could hear you fine and everything. But
that's fine. Yeah, I don't know. It's glitchy. Blame the storm. There's a storm in the northeast of the U.S. Maybe that's we didn't have much. Yeah. So so Tottenham has the bottom filling. Some of the US stadiums
it's the only place in the UK that I've seen it. I mean, it's just quite a cool thing to look at as opposed to, I don't know whether it produces better beer, but it's just quite funky to have one. And
I don't know if it produces better beer, but it's more efficient and it brings more money. I mean, the line moves quicker. You get your beer quicker, and then Tottenham gets their money quicker. So I would tend to think the investment is well worth it to help their bottom line and help the happiness, the people instead of going, man.
Are you allowed to drink beer while sitting down though in the US? Because in the UK you're not allowed to.
Yes,
you're only
absolutely.
allowed to drink it. Yeah, you're only allowed to drink it in the concourse.
No, you're allowed to drink it. Not only are you allowed to drink it, they'll have the vendors come by.
Really?
Selling. The people, the coming by with the cases of beer or anything. So it's a combination of going to a concession stand or having it at the seat, and then the beer.
We'll have it in bottles as well.
Yeah, bottles.
Plastic.
Yeah, bottles and cans. They stopped. This past year, they stopped giving it to you in cups and things like that. They would just give you the entire container. As far as fast fill, there was a guy, I went to engineering school, University of Maryland, developed this contraption where he was selling the beer, where he would put it on top of the beer can. It would rip the top of the beer can off and just be able to dump it in. So you didn't have to pour, and glug, 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 and wait for it. So he basically cut the top of the can off and you just poured it in automatically. His nickname was Robo Vendor. Him and his brothers had this sort of thing. So they made so much more money. It was a bit of a show, but you got your beer like that. He didn't have to worry about, all right, I'm pouring it. I got the foam. How much is going to come? So it's really kind of neat. So yeah, because you can eat and drink anything in the seats. Some stadiums, some baseball stadiums will allow you to bring in your own food. Last year they didn't because of COVID. Well, you bring in your own food and beer, not non-alcoholic, and things have to be sealed. When I was your age and going to games, you could bring in anything basically to the stadium, so they stopped. So it's just pies. Do any stadiums have something that's like, hey, if you're going to this stadium, our regional specialty is this, and we have this here and no place else?
Not that I can immediately think of, I'm sorry to say, but I guess some grounds are better for food. I know Burnley, we talked about that earlier. I've heard that has actually quite good food, and that's like its one redeeming quality in terms of the sort of the grab on offer. I must admit though, I can't really answer because I don't really eat football ground food. I tend to trust somewhere like McDonald's beforehand. I think that's normally a safer bet. But,
well, I don't know about over there, but it's at least for over here, it'd be certainly cheaper. Than
it's actually quite it's not that cheap in the UK. It's not that cheap. But
well, no, I'm saying to eat off the grounds.
Yeah, because I noticed before the match, people getting together on the away. I always see groups of people. Oh, we're meeting at the pub and we're going to get drinks and food. It seems like there's popular places for everybody to go. Like away teams will go, okay, this is our pub, in whatever. This is our pub near Watford, or this is our pub, near Wolverhampton or whatever. Because
I think there's normally a away pub. So there'll be a pub near the ground that will always only take away fans on match day. So that's where sort of lots of fans congregate and
interesting.
So it's like a set thing that the police will monitor it to make sure only away fans are going in this pub, only home fans are in these pubs, and it's a way of sort of providing, I guess, business for economies, but also keeping fans slightly apart in the pub. Yeah,
that's interesting. So I know Robin Sainty managed when he goes to the Midlands. He said like they're going to Villa or whatever. They go to a place called the Vine.
He mentions that on Twitter as well, like some curry house. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people sort of have these like traditions. If you go, because Birmingham, you normally play a team from Birmingham every season, whether it's Birmingham City, Aston Villa, Wolves, or sort of Leicester, which is pretty near Birmingham as well. So I think people do have these sort of routines that they look forward to in terms of like an away day weekend.
Right.
So I haven't been to the Vine, but I do. He's sort of shouted about it a lot, so I assume that it's very good. So
I've seen him post there a lot. That's interesting. I didn't know there was pubs that are specifically the away fans were going to host. So I didn't know if it was Norwich chooses this pub, Arsenal chooses this pub. So you're saying that's more like away fans are welcome here. We don't care which team you represent. That's interesting. That's probably a really good business model, to say, hey, all away fans are welcome here, as opposed to, we're going to this specific one, this group of fans or whatever. That's really interesting.
And I think the idea was brought in because when there was violence between fans at football, that lots of it happened in pubs where a group of rowdy Norwich fans or a group of rowdy Arsenal fans or whatever would come to blows. So I think there's a good way of letting fans go to the pub, but then keeping them apart until they're at the ground. So
interesting.
I think it's a very good idea. I think
this has been out. I mean, lots of really good information. And thanks for sharing this with us and then with the people who are listening. So we're already at 75 minutes in. Well, let's wrap this up because I have the stuff that I have to do today.
Yeah, I wanted to ask one last question.
Yeah, I want to let you guys ask the questions and then let William go in his way because he's got to pack and head over here.
Will, how surprised were you to find out that there was a structured fan club supporters group that basically represent the entire Western Hemisphere, and that you were contacted to come on a podcast.
I was shocked actually when I saw like a couple of tweets. Who is this man? It was just like a screen grab. We want him on the podcast, and I was like, oh, here we go. I'm famous now, aren't I? Yeah. I've had
You are
on Instagram, on Twitter, sort of people under photos. I've been told I should get an honorary US citizenship. I've been told I've made someone cry. Apparently, they started crying when they saw the flag on the telly. I mean, it's been crazy. When I bought the flag off Amazon, I didn't realize the sort of what a good game to bring it to I was going to choose, and also like the effect that it's had sort of seeing the US flag for you guys stateside. It's been a good decision, and it's been nice to connect with fans halfway across the globe. It's sort of nice to know that whatever time in the it is that we're playing in the UK, that someone at 9 a.m. is waking up to watch us lose 2-0 away. So it's sort of heartwarming in that sense. Yeah.
Even at 7, it's interesting. The going back to the USA chant, how organic did that seem? Like, okay, we're all just going to do it, or was it about five people doing? Goes, ooh, that sounds good. Let's catch on.
Well, at Watford was the best atmosphere I think I've probably been in ever. I think I'd say maybe the Man City game at home rivaled it. The Brentford game away this season was very good as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there was chanting the whole game. There was a drum. I don't know whether you heard it. There was a drum that was sort of bringing lots of noise as well. But yeah, there was chanting the whole game, and USA was one that crept up, especially after the first, second, and then at full time. But yeah, throughout the whole game, there was lots of chants, and it was most of the crowd. I don't think it wasn't like 5 people getting it going. Everyone was sort of pulling in the same direction that night.
You could tell
because it was so noisy. You can hear reading the highlights and sort of watching the highlights and clips and everything.
I'm always amazed when watching, and when the away team scores, how loud sometimes they are.
Yeah.
It's unbelievably loud. It's like they're almost louder than the home team.
Well, the home fans weren't very loud at all. I won't.
That Watford match was extremely impressive. How loud the away fans were for Norwich. That was incredible. That was just a great atmosphere.
That's a fairly easy commute for you living in London. Like approximately how far away is that?
Well, Watford is a right pain to get to from London. So I live in North London, but to get to Watford, you have to go into Central London, across Central London, and then back up again. So it actually took me like an hour and 20 minutes or something, which is pretty horrendous. But
on the tube?
Yeah, tube and train.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, most other games are fine. Tottenham's a bit out of the way in terms, it's not near a tube station or anything. But Arsenal's very good. Brentford's pretty good. Chelsea. So yeah, most clubs are quite connected. But yeah, Watford's out on a limb, as we would say in the UK. It's sort of Yeah,
so I got the sense whenever Norwich played some team in London, there was a lot of fans that were, going to do
it. Like West Ham, they play in Stratford in East London, and the train from Norwich to London goes through Stratford, so it's extremely easy to get to West Ham, especially.
I always thought it's kind of funny that West Ham is in the east of London. That always seems humorous to me.
Yeah, I mean, I've not actually been to West Ham before, but I think they've actually had some troubles because when they moved from their ground was one of these like old school, really tight. Yeah, the Boleyn grounds. Upton Park was really tightly packed in between loads of houses, and the atmosphere in there was always, amazing. But then they moved to the Olympic Stadium, and I think they had they did for a few years have some troubles in terms of like connection between the fans and the club, because it wasn't. It was just this ground like the Olympic for the London Olympics. It didn't really have any identity, didn't have any history with West Ham, and they did sort of struggle for a few years actually, because they had to sort of build that sort of identity within the stadium. So, but yeah, it's a good ground, but it's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting whether you're adopting something that's already built. I'm curious if that happens in Germany. with the teams that play in the Berlin Olympic Stadium, the 1936 Olympic Stadium versus those that have their stadiums from the ground up. I'm curious if there's a different environment.
Well, I've been to the Olympic Stadium in Berlin,
really?
and
Nice.
I went interrailing where you go sort of traveling around Europe, and it's an interesting ground. It's definitely steeped in history, but I think Hertha Berlin play there, I
believe so. Yeah.
Berlin.
Yeah.
I don't remember it being that sort of. There was like a Hertha Berlin club shop, but apart from that, there wasn't much. I don't remember of it being connected to Hertha Berlin. I mean, it was mainly a tourist attraction for people that just wanted to see the Olympic Stadium, and obviously it's linked to that sort of time period in Germany. I don't know how well Hertha Berlin play, but it'd be interesting to see whether they would prefer their own ground instead of sort of adopting.
Isn't that where Josh and Milo came from? Wasn't it Hertha?
They came from Bremen, which I don't know where Bremen is, but somewhere in Germany.
Yeah.
So I've got, my final question is, when you were waving the flag, since you're at the away end and you're not around people that you're typically around like you are for home matches, was anybody asking you, where in America are you from? Because you had the American flag, or did pretty much everybody already know, or everybody was just caught up in the moment? Or
it was all in the moment. I don't really remember the goals. I just remember sort of just jumping up and down, and then it was I had like this big coat on because it was a cold evening, and this like massive pocket, and it was in there, and I just remember pulling it out, and I don't even know what I was doing. But I mean, I've got some photos that were taken by fans like sitting behind me, which I can forward to you guys for sure. I think everyone was just sort of caught up in the moment. I think the fact that Sargent scored, everyone sort of made the link, but I didn't get asked actually where in the US I was from. I think people just sort of went to the conclusion that I was a big Josh Sargent fan. So
there you go.
I am.
Because Mark, tell them about when you ran into someone at a big warehouse. You know what a warehouse club is? It's a gigantic building that sells everything you can find basically in a grocery store, but they're like enormous.
I've kind of gotten the sense that Argos is one of these. In some ways. Anyway, back last summer, I will wear my shirt. I've got several yellow jerseys, and I had a Timu Pukki from last year, and I'm wearing it at Costco, and I wore it out in the wild because you never know who you're going to run into. And sure enough, I'm going down this aisle, and this gentleman comes up to me with a Finnish accent and asks me, "Am I from Norwich?" And I'm like, "No, but here's the deal." And he lives here in America. He was actually something of a Norwich fan before Timu ever signed, because he played soccer, even played collegiate soccer here at the University of Central Florida. But he had gone to one of Gunny's camps when he was a kid, a couple of decades ago, and had been over and had been to some of Gunny's camps and had played. And so he always had that soft spot. And then, of course, when Pukki was signed, it becomes a no-brainer. So, but he's now a part of our group.
There you go.
I don't know that.
I don't know that.
Yeah. Oh heavens! Before I told him about our Facebook group, he was on it before I got through checkout, because my phone pinged. It was like, "Yep, that's him." Bing. Welcome, Heike. There he is.
There you go.
And but we had a nice little chat. My wife's just like, "Oh Jesus, I can't take him anywhere." And but I mean, I've done this. I know we're out here. This is part of the reason I help form the AmeriCanaries. We're not alone. I knew there were more of us out there, but you gotta kind of wear it to find us in the wild.
Right.
Because I mean, if I'm wearing, if I want to find Azel fans, I'll wear an Azel shirt. This is my high school.
It's high school.
But where I coach and everything. But if I want to wear Azel stuff, I'll find Azel people. If I want to find yellows, I got to wear Norwich shirt. It's that simple. And I've worn it to other things. I've been to, we have a big pinball festival here in Dallas, and I've worn it to that, and I've had people come up to me that are Norwich connected and say, "Hey, this is great." You know, it was an older gentleman. He's probably never even online to do this stuff. Otherwise, I would have invited him on years ago. But you know, we're down to the stockyards. If I'm hanging out down the Fort Worth stockyards doing something, because that's a tourist area, and oh my God, you know, where are you going to find these folks? You know, places like that, and yeah, I just, if you want to find them, you know, be one.
Yeah, I have a jacket from the God, why can't I come up with the name? Paul Lambert area. So the jacket that's sitting over here, the jacket that he wore on the sidelines, so sort of like the rain jacket or whatever, you know, the regular zip up that has the Norwich badge, just like my lightweight jacket. I got it from the academy, you know, when they like the eBay Academy, you know, when they put stuff on there. So I wear that, and I always get people walking past, like looking at the badge, going, "Huh, what?" I've had maybe 10 people know what it is. The funniest was one time I was wearing it in the elevator of my building. I work in Washington, D.C., and the guy goes, "Norwich?" He goes, "Yeah, thanks for recognizing." It's like, "Yeah, my cousin played in the Premier League." I'm like, "Oh, really? Who's your cousin?" "Brad Guzan." You know, so this guy was a cousin of Brad Guzan, you know, who played for a couple Premier League teams in, you know, USA. So every once in a while, you'll get someone that will recognize it.
For me, the worst thing that happens is it gets confused for a Brazilian jersey. I've had people think I was wearing a Brazilian jersey. It's like, yeah, you see any blue on this? No.
Yeah, right.
So
yeah, so it's.
Would you say the most of your members are East Coast though, or like East Coast of the US?
No, not really.
I'd say we're pretty much all over.
Yeah,
I haven't posted it in a while, but I have a map where I've put you know little markers for everybody, and we got people from Anchorage all the way down to the Falklands. But you know, within America, it's, you know, where there are people, you know, it's pretty much in line with typical population density of the country.
Yeah, like on our show, we had a guy from Canada come on twice. Who's actually from Norwich, David Lamb, who was from Norwich, and then we had Lucas, you know, who's joined Mark on the Canaries Trust Board from Brazil, the Brazilian Canary, who's very involved, and his setup is far more elaborate because Lucas actually works in the media field. You know, that's what he does. So his setup, he like has his own studio. This is just my, you know, home office.
He's got a nice sound room,
right? You know, we're not using and we're using StreamYard because it's free. He's got, you know, lots of stuff going on. Lucas is great. So I'm glad that he's involved. So, you know, it's, even though it's the AmeriCanaries, it's more like the America's Canaries. You know, we're trying to.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so that's why I actually cleaned my top of my desk last night. That's why Jeff put out this nice little sticker.
I was reaching to see if I could find one.
Yeah,
I don't think I have.
Nice,
it's on the back
sticker.
of my. It's on the back of my computer.
Yeah, for the Americas. Well, mine isn't. I actually put it under my my little Norwich on it. Probably can't see it because my light's horrible. This is like a Norwich glass sort of thing. So I put it under as a coaster because I have too many things. At the top of my desk, I have a shelf and I have a variety of sports-related items up here. Orioles bobblehead, sign balls, you know, whatever, variety of things. I just got my so we're trying to expand as much as possible and get notoriety. So being acknowledged as from the AmeriCanaries podcast, when I'm on the fan zone, well, that helps. That's got an international
for sure
fan base. I didn't even ask for that. That was just nice. That's there, and trying to expand who is listening. So we'll ping you, and then we're trying to get as many people as possible.
The Sargent signing gave us popped us about 20%.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, you guys have anything else before we wrap up here?
Yeah, I want to know.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, this recent excitement and invigorated in supporting the team. Everybody's all excited. A couple of wins, it's strung together. Players coming back from being injured. What do you think? You think we've got what it takes to stay up?
I think we need a couple more wins to bring other teams into it, because I think one of Watford or Newcastle will improve. I think Newcastle surely, because they'll just buy enough players that
because
individual quality will get them through. And I think Roy Hodgson is quite a shrewd appointment for Watford, but they do look a bit like a lot of mercenaries playing for themselves instead of a team. So it'll be interesting to see whether he can get them playing together and quick enough as well. But I think we can do it. I think we've won more games than Newcastle and Burnley put together. I think that's sort of quite a good statistic. Right. We do look more solid, but we've been reliant on Rashica. I think Rashica is key to us staying up. I think he looks so much better when we've got him. But it'll be good to have a full squad back. We've still got a number of winnable home games. We've still got Newcastle, Burnley, Palace, Brentford. That's 4 big win potential there. So if we win 2 or 3 at least, then we'll see what happens. I mean, the hope's back. Let's hope it sustains itself.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to take the number of points to.
No, it'll be about 30.
Clear relegation.
33. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think 34. The lowest was 34 that I remember seeing. Yeah, I don't think 40. If you get 40, clearly you're safe. I don't think, the 17th, whoever's in 17th, I don't think they're going to have 40. Hopefully
not going to be anywhere close to that.
Norwich is 17th or higher.
I don't think they've required 40 to stay up for a long time.
But 40 is clearly you're.
Oh yeah, that's
safe,
your
right?
Totally safe zone at that point.
Safe. It's almost like in baseball, your cut is 4 runs. If you score 4 runs in a baseball game, you're going to win the majority of them. Versus if you scored less than 4, it's sort of like 40 is you hit 40, you should be safe, especially with what's going on this year. Yeah. But I don't have a clue. It's going to be in the low 30s.
Go down to the wire, I think.
Well, let's hope it doesn't, because now the squad is healthier. Norman is going to be back. Krul will eventually be back. Krul, his injury was not horrible. Gunn managed to get the clean sheet through no luck of his own. That he should have given up 1. Yeah,
Gunn's got 2 wins, so I mean. Well, no, actually, no, he didn't get the win in the Everton game. That's where Krul hurt his shoulder.
Mm-hmm. Right, but it's so we'll see. But having him get a clean sheet has got to help, because I just didn't have a lot of confidence in him. Remember, he was the goalie at the 9-0 hammering by Leicester at Southampton. That's
not a good confidence.
Yeah, I think he lost his starting job right after that too. Southampton then sort of got buried. When it's 9-0, not as bad as when
that was his Michael Theolakis moment.
Yeah. I remember when Ruddy got hammered 7-0 by Man City, and that could have been much worse without him. He was like he got player of the game for Norwich, and that's bad when you're giving up 7 goals and you're player of the game. Player that tells you that he made some ridiculous saves. That could have been much worse.
Yeah,
but still, Gunn just doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence back there. I'd feel more confident with Daniel Barden, actually, who unfortunately is fighting a pretty bad health issue right now.
But no, I think he'll. Fingers crossed that Gunn can deliver in the coming games. I mean, he's a good goalie, but just needs a good back four in front of him, I think.
Does anybody know when Krul's coming back? Is there a guess?
A few weeks, I think. 3, 4, 5 weeks.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I think we might get him. I mean, within a couple of games of coming back, because we're out we're out a week.
Right.
Now, so we get that advantage. So that was, that's 2 weeks a period right there, that out of the 3 or 4 that we were initially told. Mm-hmm. So hopefully so we can get him without, missing too many games, because I do think we need him.
He's really the heart of the team, very much. I view him as like the captain in spite of McKenzie, as I really view Krul as the captain. I mean, who else on the team was specifically subbed in a World Cup game because of his proficiency at stopping PKs? That's a lot of confidence there. He won. I forgot who they played, 2014, but I was like, oh, Tim Krul's in. And he wins the penalty shootout. So he's barking orders. You really get the sense that he really appreciates being back in Norwich, the ability to restart his career, and the support and that the club has given him, the fans have given him, and then he's given that in return with his leadership and really trying to show everybody, that how to play. You see that, all the time. So he's, a vital member of the team. All right. Anything else here? So let's wrap it up. I have stuff that I have to do in 2 hours.
No, I'm just sitting here wondering when they're going to restart this Fulham Blackpool game. They had a medical emergency in the stands apparently.
They're still playing Championship. Okay.
Yeah, it's the only game that was on ESPN Plus, so I flipped to it on my other screen, and
gotcha.
They got 12. Looks like they got 12 minutes in, and they had a medical emergency here at one end, and they still haven't restarted.
Speaking of teams with black in their name, I was pleasantly surprised to see Blackburn is sitting in automatic promotion spot right now in the Championship. I was like, where did that come from? Yeah, I knew Fulham was doing well, but all of a sudden I look, it says Blackburn's in automatic promotion. Wow, they must have had a heck of a run. Because when I first started following, Blackburn, was in the Premier League.
Yeah, looks like they just got that game back underway.
Okay, good.
Looks like they went like 30 minutes. They had to
bring
in and stuff.
Let's hope that individual is okay.
Yeah, got lots. This is a Craven Cottage. They showed lots of shots from the new stand they're getting built, which looks really nice. So,
Fulham's an interesting team. Fulham, I don't understand. Some of the clubs in England, I sort of know what they sort of stand for, and like their famous players or whatever. Okay, Fulham has the interesting old stand, and I'm not sure what else. Their badge is boring. I don't know who any of the great players are. It's one of those teams that, and they're sort of similar to Norwich. Oh, they might go up and struggle, then they're going to clobber people in the Championship. But I don't even know what. Like, okay, Fulham is known for. I don't know what the blank is to fill in.
They're known for being the 6th, 7th, 8th team in London. I think they're just way down the rung. Not much else.
West Brom. When I was on the Fan Zone Wednesday, Chris Brunt was the player. They always have a journalist and they have a player. So Chris Brunt, that apparently was his first time on the show. West Brom player. I don't know what West Brom stands for. I couldn't tell you anything. Like, okay, West Brom is known for. I don't know what to fill that blank is, so it's like they exist. It's almost like I think I've talked to Mark before. When I was younger, college football, you have conferences, teams in certain areas all form a conference. They play in that league. There's certain teams, it's like, well, they exist, but what were they known for? Now it's changed a lot, but there are teams, it's like, well, I know that team is there, but did they ever have any success in anything? There's some teams that just aren't really good athletically.
They're just kind of there.
They're there. Yeah, I won't go into the specifics. That some of it's changed, but some of the clubs, like, okay, what is West Brom? Well, they're a club that generally did okay, middle of the table. They would every once in a while get clobber, every once in a while have a big victory, but it's like, their stadium, it's like, I don't know, when you think of West Brom or when you think Fulham, okay, has the interesting stadium, like what is West Brom is known for, and generally you can fill in something like I don't know what to fill in. I have no clue. All right, so don't want to wrap it up and me trying to figure out what the deal with West Brom is, but Chris Brunt was in the studio and he was decent, for the very first time. I looked him up. They showed a lot of his left-handed hammer shots with goal. They had his little highlight reel, that sort of welcomed him. So I'm like, oh, left footer. But I didn't get to ask him if he scored against Norwich. That wasn't shown as one of the highlights, so I have no clue. I didn't look.
Yeah.
Right. All right, you guys ready to wrap this up?
I think so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank William, our new USA friend.
Yeah, thank you. I'll join the Facebook group and stay in touch with you guys.
A new AmeriCanaries representative with the flag. We hope to see the flag show up many more times in the future. That means Sargent has scored goals.
Yeah.
And I'd like to thank, as always, Mark and Jeff for joining us. And for those of you listening, please continue. We are working on a slate of media people who cover Norwich. We have quite a few that have already expressed interest in coming on. So we'll try to figure out how to schedule everybody and get them on and increase the reach of the AmeriCanaries podcast and the AmeriCanaries fan base. Thank you very much, everybody. And on the ball city.
Cheers, guys.